Well, hello everybody, and good day and welcome to the Little Farmer's Farm with me, Guru Mafinda, aka Tony. And on today's show, there's lots and lots and lots to do. So we better get cracking. See you in a bit. Yeah, lots to do. So please, if you like what you see, give us a comment, a like and a subscription if you're not already a subscriber, and hit the bell notification button so you don't miss another exciting episode with me and the Mafinders down here in Eden. Alright, weeding first, there's plenty to get through. Now in the last 6 days we've been experiencing really what you would say was ideal growing conditions. It's not been too hot, it's certainly not been cold, and we've had quite a bit of rain mixed in with the more temperate sort of warm days. So it's been a mixture of sunshine, rain, and sort of temperatures around the sort of 20 to 21 degree mark. And at this time of year, that's spot on really for growth. You'll see what I mean when we go into the brassica cage. So we're entering into the brassica cage now, and as you can see, the plants that we planted in around 3 weeks ago are coming to real fruition. Now those two beds at the back I didn't weed the last time I came down, and there were lots of little speck weeds, pin weeds coming up at that time. So as you look at it now, you can see there's a carpet growing underneath, so that's the first job, to get all that cleared out, which means I'll move these potato buckets back a bit, get in there and spend about half an hour pulling every single weed out from the back end here. I'll spot weed as well as we're going along, just to see, like these locations, there's going to be some weeds coming through from the last weeding, which was sort of like last Saturday, but it's not too bad, so you've got to keep on top of the weeds. I left those two in as a bit of an experiment for 1 and 2. I just ran out of time to do the weeding on them, but when I first looked last week, they're all sort of like this little weedy size, but you leave them another week and they become that. You leave them another week in these conditions and they'll be taller than the crops that you're growing. We start to shade those out and pull nutrition out from the soil, and they're generally not beneficial to your growing system. But I quite like the results that we're getting in here. They're pretty cool. Obviously, that being a more compacted soil, yeah, the root systems for those cauliflowers have not established themselves as much through the soil growing medium as these ones. This was a less compacted soil, and if you look at it, they were all planted at the same time, and those plants are bigger. They're probably twice as big as those plants. It just goes to show you the growing medium counts for quite a lot. That's had plenty of nitrogen in it as well, in the form of the concentrated farmyard manure, but not too much, because in this bed there's been too much of that. So it's a fine balance really. The ones at the front of the spinach have actually perished because there was too much. They were essentially growing in more or less manure. So yeah, that's the fine balancing wire we've got to tread as growers. Too much is not beneficial, too little is not beneficial, just the right. It's like Goldilocks's bear's porridge, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, here's the before. Okay, now, bit of a discussion about weeds. Some weeds you can compost, so they actually do have a use until they flower. The leaf matter of the weed can be composted to create new soil. And it's a good way of sort of keeping things organic, creating your own growing medium on site, and obviously keeping down the weeds, because you're getting rid of the weeds by composting the weeds. Other weeds are invasive and perennial, and give them an inch and they'll take a yard. Horse's tail is a bad one on here. So is stinging nettles, dandelions, although you can compost the leaf of the dandelion. The roots we always dispose of off site. So you've got to get rid of those. The same with hedge bindweed. Hedge bindweed particularly invasive. So I use 2 buckets. I use a big one, like that, and a smaller one, like that. And the bindweed, the horse's tail, the nettle, and all the nasty ones that you can't really recycle, you can't compost them down because they'll just grow in your compost bin, like I'll show you in a bit up at the top. We pulled out all the nettles and threw them in the composting corral by mistake. They just grew again and ended up taking over the compost corral, which is counterproductive. So I have a bucket for each. A bucket for the ones that we can't recycle and compost, and a bucket for the ones that we can. Makes sense. Sometimes you'll forget and you'll make a mixed bucket, and then it's all got to go as waste. Then you can't recycle it. You can't take the chance of recycling it, because especially with the hedge bindweed and the horse's tails, you only need like a small little fragment of them to grow again into another plant. It'll root itself and grow again into another plant. So that'll just drive you insane. So we're in amongst the foliage of the cauliflowers. You've got a lot of standard weeds. That looks like a dandelion there. But that at the back is a horse's tail, because it looks a bit like a horse's tail. Mare's tail, horse's tail, it's all pretty much the same sort of a species or family. And then over this side we've got the bindweed, the hedge bindweed. I'm sat on a little stool here that's sinking into me wood chip. That's the hedge bindweed. You can't compost that. Waste of time. You'll end up with even more hedge bindweed growing everywhere. So there we go. Relatively weed free. It's taken about an hour, but I've done all the lot. I've gone around every bed. Just over an hour actually, about an hour and 10 minutes it took. Because you're hand weeding, you've got to be very careful that you don't break the leaf of the plants that you want to crop, which are these broccoli and calabrese, kale, cauliflower. Plenty of it. And I'll be harvesting that kale, or some of it, taking about 2 or 3 leaves from each of the plants to use, basically to eat. These pak choy, or bok choy, or whatever you want to call them, they're going to be ready shortly. In fact, they could probably be taken now, but I've just been pinching out some of the flowering tips. So inside there, if you look down, you can see a little stem. That was where there was a flowering tip coming. Is there any more? I think there's one in there. If you look closely down there, you can see a floret forming. They could eat the florets, but if they burst through, it'll stop the plant from growing. In fact, it won't. It'll make the plant grow about 3 feet high, which is not what you want, because all the outer leaf, the part that you really do eat, it'll be shriveling away, basically, going thinner and thinner as the plant turns into a Christmas tree. In other words, it bolts. There's the spinach. There's more spinach there, and there's also these sweet corn. Now, when the pak choy get harvested, they're going to be washed, and half of them are going to be eaten that week, and the other half are going to be frozen. So part boiled or steamed and frozen, bagged up and frozen. The beauty about these buckets is when you're growing potatoes in them, these have got new potatoes in them, in the buckets, is that you can move them around. So when you need to get into the beds to do your weeding, all you do is you move them back away from where you're going to be working, and then once you've completed your weeding, you move them back into position. Or you can alter the positions. I mean, that one's getting shaded out there, so I may well alter that one and bring him across to this side, and just keep moving the buckets about so that they can still maintain the photosynthesis from the light. Put that little screw in there as well so I can hang my coat up. It's the little things, boys and girls, the small victories in life that make it worth living. Right, let's carry on. Better shut that door before the cabbage white butterflies find the entrance. Sorry guys, I forgot to tell you about the pak choy bed. So once I clear out those pak choy, I harvest them. 6 sweet corn plants have been on the grow now for about a month. In fact, it's probably just over a month. When did I start them off? What does it say on there? Is that the 27th of the 4th? It's about 4 weeks then that they've been in there. Just over 4 weeks. They're going to be getting planted in there. So 6 plants are going to go in there. And they self-pollinate. So what happens is when the plant grows up to probably about this size, probably about 5.5 foot in height, you get sort of like the what are they called now? The frills that come on top of them. What are they called? Yeah, like they've got like a sort of pollination seed in them, kind of thing. A pollinator in them. I'm thick, mate. Anyway, that fluffy bit on the top with all the pollinating seeds drop down onto the growing sweet corn, the actual corn. And the corn has what's called silks on the top of it. They're like tendrils, very fine hairs that come off the top of it. And when the seeding seeds come down, the pollination comes down, lands on the silks, and then pollinates the sweet corn pod. It then pollinates the sweet corns, the kernels of corn that are inside the pod, and hopefully you get full pollination. But it pollinates itself. It's a sweet corn that pollinates itself. So as they drop down from the top, they land on the hairs, the silks. I like doing that. My tickly hands made a return, boys and girls. And then the silks get pollinated essentially, go down to where the corns are, and produce the golden corn that we want, the corn on the cob. So no real need for insects, and inside here as well they'll be protected from birds that prey on them, and hopefully a bit of protection from rodents such as rats, because they're plagued on here. When you get good sweet corns on, good cobs of sweet corn, they get eaten by the rats before you get a chance. But in here, inside this grow tent, we hope that they'll be offered some sort of protection. I mean, this netting won't really deter a rat from coming in. It won't certainly stop it, but hopefully it'll confuse it so that it doesn't want to chew its way in. That's the fingers crossed hope that we've got. And these are our weeds. So we've got the baddies, the ones that we can't utilise in there. Not a lot really. In fact, in and amongst that, there's some leaf that I can utilise that's got in a bit wayward. These are just the small leaves from the bases of the plants that I pulled off, and they can be used, these ones. But in and amongst that, you've got the horse's tail and you've got the bindweed, which you can't use. So that goes in here. This wheelbarrow that's full of water. Water, by the way, that's going to be tipped out before I take it up to the tipping point at the top and throw it over the edge, because we don't want that. Got to take that off plot. Whereas this stuff, the non-invasive and small leaf from the plants, the brassica plants, is going in here. This is the second bucket. So I've had 1.5 buckets worth of organic matter that I can compost. The first lot's gone in there, and here's the second going in now. And the higher you stack those compost bins, the better. So that's mixed in with some of the soil from the plot, along with all that organic leaf matter. And as long as it hasn't flowered, the weeds will then compost down and become new plants in the form of compost to feed those new plants. There was a cherry tree once here, which I chopped down about 3 years ago, I think. I only cut it down to that level because I couldn't get underneath it, and I couldn't be bothered, and nearly said asked then, to dig it out. So I drilled it from the top so it would potentially rot down, and I'd take it out at a different date, another date, a further date down the line. And today might be that date, because I've got myself a new toy. Look at that beast. A hatchet. It's got like a protective locking mechanism on the side. It's hard to do one-handed this, but we'll try. You open it up like that and it should just come out, but the blade's protected. It's got a little guard on it. There. And then you remove that guard and you're ready to go. Let's give it a try. You've got to be very careful with axes. That blade is pretty sharp. That'll cut paper, that. Brand new blade like that. Good, stout, very grippy gloves, those, rubber gloves. Because you don't want to be slipping on the handle. And you want your legs to be quite wide apart. Straight cuts. Lovely straight lines you want. That made short work of that particular trip hazard, boys and girls. It's been annoying me for the last 3 years. And there it was, gone. And all I was left with really is wood chip. That just needs to be covered over now, back again with the wood chip. And the jobs are good. No more trip hazard. Fantastic stuff. Got to be sure that you've got a nice sharp blade. I might get an axe sharpener for that. Magnuson, it was only 15 quid. In fact, I don't even think it was that. I think it was £13.95. But I have an axe. Superb. I like that as well. That's a logo there. I am Viking. Yeah, so I put its protective rubber cover back onto the blade end, and then it can go back in its holster and be hung back up there. In fact, I might find a better place for that, because that's a bit flimsy for hanging it up on, isn't it? Might put it on that one, that metal one there. In fact, I think I'll although it's all in its metal case and everything, it's overhead, isn't it? So that's probably a silly place to put it. I'm going to put it into the cheeky hut. Yeah, that's a better spot for old Magnuson. Out of reach of little Vikings and quite securely attached. But it's also accessible for old Ragnar, for when the interlopers come. Oh, and I need to chop some wood up. Safety first, guys. Very important. That's why we have these. First aid kits. Fully stocked. Got all sorts in that. I'll do a separate video on allotment first aid kits one of these days. Now, the thing with weeds is, a weed is just a plant that's in the wrong position. Some are useful, some are not. A lot of the weeds are medicinal and also beneficial. You can eat them, such as raspberries and blackberries, but they're invasive and they'll spread. Mint's a good one for that, mint. Spreads like wildfire. Comfrey's the same. So for stinging nettles and prickly critters like that, you need some stout gloves, so you don't get stung or prickled. Now that is raspberry that's grown out of this raspberry bed. It spreads through the rhizomes underground and pops up, like you can see there, in various locations. Now we don't want the raspberries in that bed, but it's a constant battle. It's the same in this potato bed at the end. The rhizomes go underground. You have to fish them out every season, at least twice, before you do your planting up, to get rid of these wayward raspberries that have come through from the rhizomes that spread underground. So with these ones, obviously the stout gloves, always weed near the base, as deep down as you can get, gently tug, and they'll come up like that. Now, because we're not replanting any of these, which you can do, if you get the root will root that bit, and you can replant them. But because we're not doing that, again, they're going to be taken off site and disposed of off site. Gentle but firm, and up they come. And it clears the bed. Okay. The same with stinging nettles, etc. I've got a clump of stinging nettles down there. You really need gauntlets for that. But I'm hard, me, so I'm not going to use them. Yeah, impervious to pain, me. Those are stinging nettles, and that's comfrey. Now, the comfrey that was planted in there was a little small clump. And when I say small, it was no bigger than, say, that. And it spreads its wings underground, and the comfrey then comes up. Comfrey and borage, the bees love it, and it's also an excellent plant tea that you can make out of it. It's a good plant feed when you chop the foliage back, and we'll show you on another episode about that, comfrey tea, to feed especially your brassicas. Same with nettle. Nettle's quite good as a feed. It's a beneficial weed, basically, if you treat it right. So as they come up like that, you chop it up, put it into these buckets that you get your normal feeds in, with the lids on. Fill it about halfway with the chopped up leaf and stem. Pour water on top of it. Well, in fact, you fill it all the way up with the leaf and stem. Pour water on top of it to fill in any gaps, so that it's level. No, you don't. I'm telling lies. You do it about 4 inches off the top with water, and then you put the brick in. Just a normal brick to weight it all down, then put the lid back on, right on when you've done it, so like the 25th of May 2024, or is it the 26th today? 25th, I think, isn't it? Put the date on, put that it's nettle tea or comfrey tea, leave it for 4 weeks, take the lid off, hold your nose because it stinks, but you can then decant the liquor that's inside of there into plastic milk bottles, you know, which we'll show you at a later date. There are videos of me doing this, actually, but the liquor that's in there is a good strong feed. Excellent for tomatoes, the comfrey. That's more for your brassicas, but the roots go deep down into the ground. I'm digressing now, I know, but the roots go deep into the ground, pull the nutrition, the minerals and the vitamins out of the ground, and it goes into the foliage, and the foliage then becomes a cracking feed, liquid feed for your plants. But I've got plenty of nettle tea, and I've got too many nettles, so I'm just going to pull them up and get rid, and get stung to death. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Some people find weeding very therapeutic. I'm trying to sort of embrace the suck of weeding, to be honest with you. But stay tuned for tomorrow, where we'll be planting these, the Sharps Express potatoes, into there. The rest of our spuds into here, in front of the tiki hut. And here, which is the potato pallet collar bed, that's piled up with detritus at the moment, but won't be tomorrow. And that's the last of the spuds. So, from a quite chilled out Guru Mafinda down here at the Little Farmer's Farm in Eden, I'll catch you later. I'll catch you tomorrow, actually. But that's how you spend 5 hours of your life on a bank holiday Saturday in May, the end of May 2024. Well worth it. Catch you later on, guys. Keep growing with your heads down. And I say, tomorrow we're going to be doing more planting. Oh, I forgot to show you the last bit. These cucumbers and tomatoes need to be put into here and here. We've got the peppers as well. Not got chili peppers this year, just got the sort of bell pepper and horned pepper. I'll also be trimming my grapevine in the Lady Farmer's greenhouse. So stay tuned for that. Catch you later. Have a great bank holiday weekend. It's Saturday night tonight. Don't get too drunk. You've always got Sunday night for that. Yeah? Get down the plots. Ta-ra now, boys and girls. Take care. God bless. And we love you all. Bye-bye.